Many parents are struggling today because they're hurting from their relationship with their dad. Join me and my special guest for this PG-13 episode of Family Vision.
Hi, my name is Lissy Rienow. Welcome to Family Vision, the podcast from Visionary Family Ministries, strengthening families through practical, encouraging, and real conversations.
Rob Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries. John Finch, welcome back to Family Vision.
Thanks for having me, brother. I'm enjoying it.
All right. Well, we started in our last episode. You shared your journey of the tragic loss of your dad. He took his life when you were 11 years old. And that sent you down a path, as you shared, of anger and alcoholism and great struggles with bitterness and resentment. And you shared your journey and God's grace and God's mercy through all of that, bringing you to a place of forgiveness and calling you up in your role as a father of 3 daughters and a husband to your wife of now almost 30 years. And you've written this fantastic book, The Father Effect, Hope and Healing from a Dad's Absence, as well as this movie also called The Father Effect, which is available for free on YouTube. I'd love for everybody to go watch that and learn more. But John, I wanted to continue this conversation today and specifically have you start off by talking about how your journey affected your fatherhood journey as a father of 3 daughters.
I struggled to be the dad I needed to be. From the outside looking in, I looked like a pretty good dad. And I loved my little girls. And I was a pretty engaged father, but just the very least possible to seem engaged. Because I had this anger, there were times I lost it with my girls. And those are the times they're hard to look back on, right? And I've had these long conversations with my girls. They know my story. And so they see and understand me a little more and understand, oh, that's why Dad had some anger issues. That's why Dad did some of the things he did. But I remember, many times I'd be upstairs in my office and one of my 2-year-old would come breaking through the door. And I'd be in the midst of doing something and I would just turn and yell at my wife downstairs. You better come get her. I was that guy. I was a jerk. And knowing full well that, my 2-year-old's, her attention span was maybe 30 seconds. I could have just let her get up in my lap, loved on her, 30 seconds later, she's off doing whatever. But that wasn't me. So my anger was very detrimental towards probably my wife than my little girls. But I did lose it, with my little girls very often and with my wife. And so much of that was rooted in my dad issues. There's something that every young man that doesn't have a father struggles with. And it is an anger that I remember so many times, like my wife would ask me to do something around the house and I had no clue because I had nobody ever show me. So like if I'm repairing a toilet flapper, right? If it goes out and I'm sitting there and I'm probably taking a lot longer than I think I should be, I start getting angry. I start getting mad. Because I'm like, not only mad that I can't do it, and I feel like every man should be able to, but the fact that my dad wasn't there to show me. So there's this building anger that just boils over at so many different times in our life. And, there's also a confidence level that you walk through life not quite sure of yourself, not quite knowing exactly if this is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. Again, goes back to you didn't have that father showing you or telling you, that affirmation that every young boy looks for in a father, that you're doing a great job. You're going to be a great man. You're a good son. All of those things, you have what it takes, right? All of those things that a young man needs growing up, I didn't get. And so I just kind of was always not very confident and I was cautious, not knowing if what I was doing was right or wrong.
I saw a headline, this must have been a couple years ago now, and because you deal in dad ministry and fatherhood ministry, I'm sure you saw it. It was something like this: research now proves dads are important in the lives of kids. I don't know if you have seen stuff like that go around. The comedicness of the fact that we needed research, quote unquote, to tell the world that actually dads are important is beyond laughable. But that does give you an insight into where we are with our culture. Like, oh, up until I saw that headline, I was under the impression dads weren't important, but now there's research that says we are. It really is crazy. You've now spent a lot of years digging into a lot of father stories and a lot of kids stories who have had father wounds or father loss. And I want you to speak specifically to some of your learnings of what happens in the life of a girl or a daughter who's experiencing trauma or loss or wounds with dad.
There's a great story, and I've told this one several times. It's probably one of my favorite ones from the movie. I was interviewing Dr. Meg Meeker. She wrote a book for dads and daughters, and I recommend it for every dad that has a daughter out there, called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. And I was talking with her kind of off camera, and she told me this story. She said, John, she was a doctor. And she said, John, what got me into becoming an author was the sexual activity of young girls was getting younger and younger and younger. Like at first I was seeing these 16-year-olds, then 15, then 14, and 13-year-olds come in, and they were sexually active. So that's what got me into writing books. And so, I had more than one occasion, a few girls come in 13, 14 years of age. I'd give them their physical. And before they would leave, they'd turn and say, "Hey, Dr. Meeker, can you give me a prescription?" And she would say, "There's nothing wrong with you. You're totally fine. What do you need a prescription for?" And they would say, "I don't care what it's for, but at the bottom of it, put cannot have sex." She said, "John, what was happening was these young girls were having sex. It wasn't pleasurable either emotionally or physically, but it was the only affection they were getting. They weren't getting any positive father affection from their dads." And so this was their permission to take to Johnny to say, "Hey, Johnny, I can't have sex anymore. See this prescription? Can't do it. This is what the doctor said." So as a father of 3 girls, that's a mind blower, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make sure my girls know that they are loved, that they are cherished, that I'm proud of them, I believe in them, all of these different things, that there's nothing they can do to make me love them any more or any less, that it's not anything performance-based, that they are children of God. They're daughters of God, and He loves them, is proud of them, believes in them, just like I do, more so than I ever will, right? So that's just one story. And we ran into it over and over and over again with girls, with ladies who the father absence, again, them longing for the love of a man.
Tell me about some stories you've heard of the impact on sons.
One of the guys we interviewed in prison, there was a young man named Jose that was in the prison that he shared about his story of his dad. And he said, my dad, when I was 10, 11 years old, my mom would send me down the street because my dad was at a bar and he'd get drunk every day. And my mom would send me down there to get him. And he said, I went down there to get him, and, I'd bring him back home. And then I'd proceed to just watch him verbally and physically abuse my mom. So he said, "You know what, John, guess what I did when I turned 16? And I said, "What?" He said, "I started drinking, getting drunk." And he said, "I started verbally and physically abusing my mom because that's what I thought you did."
John, a dad comes to you and says, "My anger, frustration, hurt has been overflowing on my wife. It's been overflowing on my kids. I don't even understand all the roots behind it. I just know this is not what God wants for me. I don't want to be doing this to my family." What would you say are like, I know there's a long journey ahead of healing and growth, but what are the steps today? What are 1, 2, 3 this week?
So first and foremost, the number one most important step is admit you're wounded. Some men, a lot of men, because of pride and ego and everything else, will never even admit they're wounded. They just can't do it.
Admit to who?
Admit it to themselves. They can't admit to themselves that they're wounded. So they'll try to suck it up, man up, and still try to figure this thing out or fight through it. That's the mentality of a lot of men. And at the end of the day, it's about surrendering. So us as men that think to surrender is tough because we've been taught all our lives never to surrender, never give up. So the first step is admitting that you're wounded. The second step is inviting God into the wound. It's inviting Jesus into the womb to help you, and he's going to help you. If you ask him for help, he's going to help you. He's going to put the right people in your life. He's going to do all those things. The third thing is finding a counselor. It's finding that Christian counselor that can help walk you through the journey.
Well, John, God's led you to create this ministry, The Father Effect, with the book and with the movie. I'd love for everybody in the Family Vision community to get connected with you and get these resources. So tell us more about the book, more about the movie, and how to experience them.
Yes, so the book you can get on our website. It's also available on Amazon. The movie you can get on YouTube for free. They're a little different in the sense that the book goes into much greater detail. It was hard enough for us to put the story, the full story, in a 60-minute movie. And just to kind of give you an idea, so my dad kind of got wrapped up in the mafia, and he ended up going to prison. And long story short, we ended up getting put into witness protection. So there's some of those details that I wasn't able to put in the movie in great detail. So there's a lot more to the story, a lot more of the struggles. And again, even what did God show me through this process? How did he teach me different things? And again, to even have a relationship with him that's a healthy, inspiring, encouraging relationship. It's all there in the book.
John, we appreciate you taking the time, sharing your heart and sharing your story. Again, John Finch, the author of The Father Effect, Hope and Healing from a Dad's Absence. And I'd love to hear from you. Any comments or thoughts you had about these past two conversations with John, or if you've got some prayer needs, or like John said, you've never reached out to someone to share some of the hurt and trauma that you've been through, you can reach out to me. Drop me an email. podcast@visionaryfam.com. I'd love the chance to connect with you, pray with you, offer any support and encouragement that I possibly can. We'd also love to see you at one of our upcoming live events in your part of the country. All you need to do is go to our website, visionaryfam.com, and click on that events button. And I'd also point you to another free resource that we've got on our website. It's helping your child find freedom from anger. It's a free MP3 that you can get by going to visionaryfam.com/freedom, visionaryfam.com/freedom to download that MP3. And I look forward to our next time together with you on Family Vision.